So in this video, we're going to have a look at how to set up and use our Vari-Angle VCT tool for our JWEI JCut Cutter. So the first thing I need to do is identify my tool. As you can see, I have it here. And we've got a few parts to this one. So there's the actual blade holder, and there's the pin that holds them together. Then we need to change our blade. And you'll see there is my blade in its current setup. So I'm going to get my Allen key. I can then loosen the two screws that are on the top. Take this plate off. And you'll see I've then got my blade just sat in there. So inside the blade holder, you'll see that we've got this pin here. Now that's going to locate in one of those cutouts on the blade. Now you can have the blade in this position, which is its furthest out position, or you can have the blade in the second position, which is just like that. Now, the only reason why we'd normally have it in the further out position is if you want to fully V-cut bevel, where you're cutting all the way through the material, and you would like to cut materials like reboard or Zanita board that are about 16mm thick. Other than that, it is better to have it in this position here, because what that will do is it will stop too much flex on your blade. Because we're going to be cutting sideways with this, and it's a tungsten carbide blade, it will cause flex and it will snap the blade a lot easier. So that's the blade in that position there. So the actual blade that we're using right now is the J351 blade from JWEI. And it's obviously repositionable, so I can put the other side in if I wanted to, just like that. Then I'm going to lock that back in place. So you'll see that on the holder here, on the plate here, it's got a little sort of pin mark just there. That's going to go where that little pin was. So we're going to line that up. And then we're going to put our screws back in. Now when I put these back in, I like to just get it so one sort of grips and then put the other one in. So then I start tightening them up. I sort of just tighten them in order, just like that. So now the blade's in position, we've got to be super careful because we've got obviously sharp end over here, but we've also got a sharp end over this side as well. Now this is a Vari-Angle tool, so you'll see on this side over here, we've got different angles of adjustment just here. Now these line up to the back edge of the tool, so this edge here. As you can see, if I put that in there, it lines up with the top tip of the blade. So at the moment we are on 45 degrees. If I wanted to change that, I'd get a different Allen key. I'd then loosen these off, just in here. Again, being careful with the blade. And then I'll be able to turn or move the angle of cut. Now, if we do move the angle of cut, so let's say I wanted to put it on 0 degrees there and have it as like a straight cut blade. If we do move that angle of cut, it's really important that we change our depth of our blade. So this is not an automatic tool height blade. So it does not use the tool depth pad, so you have to do the height manually. So it is important that we change the tool height and also the other adjustments that we're going to do as well. So I could just push that back into place. So I wanted at 45 degrees. And then I'm going to lock that into place just there. we go. I'm going to ensure it's nice and tight because I don't want that to move. There we go. So the next thing we need to do is actually load this tool into our head. So as we can see on top of the tool here, it's a K1 tool. Now this bit is going to go through first, and you'll see that we've got this larger hole on this side and then we've got a smaller one on that side. What we want to do is we want to be seeing that larger hole on the front. So we may need to use JWEI to turn the head around. So I'm going to pop that in. So you can see at the moment that there's no hole on the side there. So all I'm going to do is go to JWEI. I'm going to use my arrow keys and just click them once until I can see that hole on the front, just like that. Then I'm going to get my tool, and I like to hold it like this so that my hands are out of the way of the blades, and I'm going to put that in. Just like so. I'm going to get the pin, I'm going to put that through, and I'm going to screw that into place. Now, we don't normally, you can see there's an Allen key bolt just in there. So you can put tighten it up a little bit. We don't want to get it super, super tight because we do want to allow for a little bit of movement in that tool. So that's the blade set up and the tool now in the tool head. So now we're going to move on to telling the JWEI cutter that the tool is actually in place. So now we've put the tool in place into the JWEI JCut. Next thing we need to do is go over to our JWEI to actually tell it that that's the tool that we've got in place. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to first go to tool parameter. Then I'm going to go down to this bottom section just down here and ensure that K1 is set as VCut 1. So that tells it that it's now using a VCut tool in that position, and it's going to change the way that the machine works in order for that VCut to work correctly. So we have to tell it it's VCut 1. Now in that list we also have knife 1. Knife 1 is going to be for your kiss cut tool, wheel 1 is going to be for your crease wheel tool, and VCut 1 is going to be for your VCut. Then we're going to press apply, yes, and then OK, yes. Now if I looked over here and went to tool depth, you will now see we only have the option for router and knife. We do not have the option to do a tool depth on the VCut, and that's because it doesn't do the tool depth using the depth pad. We have to do that manually, so it doesn't give you that option, and it's a good way of just checking that it is actually correctly set up. When setting our VCut tool up for the first time, we have to check the rotation of the tool. We don't want the blade to have rotation on it, because if it does, it's not going to cut correctly, and it's also going to start pulling the core out of your materials. So the easiest way to check this is by looking down the top of our tool here. This is obviously mounted, this is the actual tool holder, and then this plate here is the tool. So we're going to look to check to see whether they line up by looking down the two. So at the moment that looks really good. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to show you it not looking so great and how we would adjust that. So we're going to go back into JWEI, I'm going to go to tool parameters, then I'm going to go to head at the top here, then I'm going to go to our K1 tool, and you can see that we've got a little preset here for the CWT. You can make presets if you want to, or you can just set the rotation up for this tool only. So ours is on the bottom one. Now it's at -6 at the moment, so I'm going to put in there +10 just to send it really far out. I'm going to go down to the bottom, press apply, press OK. Now to actually get this to finish this process off, like it hasn't changed at the moment, I need to come back into JWEI and I need to press reset. Now it's done that. It's going to start resetting the machine, and it's going to turn that tool to its new position. There we go. So if I turn the head back around in JWEI, you'll see now these two are nowhere near lining up. So it's a little bit of adjustment. So you have to sort of change the numbers and check it, reset and check it, reset and check it. But getting the rotation correct on this tool will make a big difference to its cutting capability. So I'm going to go back into tool parameters, back to head, and I'm going to change that one back to -6.0. Press apply, OK. And then again, I need to reset the head. And you'll now see it's back to being nice and straight on the front. So the next part of setting up our VCT tool on our JWEI JCut is doing the height. Now this is a process that we are going to have to do every time that we use the tool. Every time you change the blade or adjust the blade or change the angle of the blade, it's always recommended that we check our height. Now this is a manual process, so to do this we need to go into debugging on JWCam, then use our arrow keys to move the head around. And then I'm going to get some standard A4 printer paper. I'm going to put that underneath my blade like that. You'll notice I've got the blade now in the upwards position because we do all of our testing on all of our tools cutting up the belt like that. So now that I've done that, I need to come into JWCam, I need to go to VCut 1, and then I'm going to use my tool up, tool down buttons here, and pressing and holding those, you'll see it'll bring then my tool down into its cut position. So I'm going to bring it down slowly to the top of the surface of my bed. So at the moment it's just sat just above the paper. You can see I can move that underneath. You'll also notice I've not got the vacuum on at the moment, and I'm doing that just so I can move the paper. And also it gives me a little bit of a safety net because when we turn our vacuum on, it's going to pull that paper down and we might need to adjust it a little bit more, which is fine. Now I've got it close, I'm going to go to fine tuning, and then I'm going to slowly just keep clicking until the tool is where I want it. So keep clicking, checking. So it's still above. Keep bringing it down. This is now just about into my paper. There you go, so you can see it's now cut perfectly into my paper there, and it's a nice cut just there. So we can see now that it's given us a value there of 46.13. I'm going to press OK. That's going to update that side now to 46.13. Now I need to actually test this. So I need to take it out of fine tuning so I can move the head a lot quicker. I'm going to put my paper back underneath my print head, my cut head. Same thing, going to put the head over the top, blade in the upright position. Now this time I'm going to turn suction on. Just like that. I'm then going to press my VCut 1 button, which is going to then drop my tool into that new position. I'm then going to press my up arrow, just like that. Then I'm going to press the VCut 1 button again. That's going to bring the tool up out of the bed, move it out of the way, and I can check my cut. So you can see that's cut really nicely there, and it hasn't cut into the bed at all. So now we've done the height of our VCT tool, we need to move on to our alignments of our VCT tool. Now, if you've already used your VCT, you're basically now ready to start cutting. You don't need to do the alignments again. They'll already be there and saved. If you haven't used the VCT tool, it's important that we do these, else it won't cut correctly. So what we're going to do is this time we're going to get some sort of thicker, slightly thicker material, just makes it a little bit easier to see the alignments. I'm going to put that onto my bed. Then I'm going to go into my tool parameters again, and this time I'm going to go down to VCut 1. Now I'm in VCut 1, we'll see that we've got our alignments in here. So most of these are going to be left as they are, so things like blank speed, run speed, down speed. We then have our cut depth and cut height, down delay, up delay, and rise angle. The over offset is actually our overcut, so you can add like up to 10mm overcut on there, which we do use quite a lot for a VCut tool. And then we have our model set. So this section here is quite important if you have multiple V-cuts or you use the vari-angle. So if you have a center offset V-cut tool as well as the vari-angle V-cut tool, you will need to use this section here. So we're currently in model 0, you have model 1 and model 2. To change it, you click on the 0 default there and you can change between 1, 2 as well. So if you have your center offset tool currently set up on model 0, you'd need to do all of these alignments in model 1, and then when you're using this tool you want to be using model 1, so you'd flick it in like it is now, and then if you're using your center offset tool you go back to model 0. Likewise, if you're going to be using different degrees, different angles, then you'd have to make sure that you use the different adjustments in there. So we're going to be using 0, and we can see that we have our angle, which is 45 degrees, and then we have our vertical length and horizontal length. So we're going to have a look at those two when we cut the test in a second. So I'm going to press apply, and I'm going to press OK. The main thing there is just to make sure that your adjustments, your values look similar to the ones that we have there. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my arrow keys. I'm going to set up a temporary origin on the bed. Just there. I'm then going to go over to OptiScout. I'm going to then import a VCut test file. So if you have your JWEI toolbox on your desktop, you'll find this in that. So we've got the crosshair. I'm going to open that up. Now all this is a 150 by 150 crosshair, just 2 lines overlapping, and that's it. So I now need to set that up as an actual V-notch job. So I'm going to go into not defined. Where it says default, I'm going to go down to VCut or VCT. So VCT will do both sides of a line. VCT bevel will just do the one side. So I'm going to VCT into the grey square. And then we've got our options in here. So speed down is how fast it's going when it is cutting. So I'm going to make this super slow. So I'm going to go 50. I'm going to do a rapid speed of 500. Lift of 50. Lowering of 50. Position up, I'm going to have at 30, so it's nice and out of the way. And then position down, I want it to cut all the way through, so I'm going to leave that at 0. I'm not going to use the extend, shorten lines, so that's just for sort of an overcut. I'm going to press OK on that. So this is now what I'm going to cut. So obviously in JWCam, making sure your vacuum zones are correct, and making sure that your temporary origin is done. Then I'm going to go to output to device, and then going to output it. So it's going to do 4 cuts because it's going to do each side of the line to create the V. So now it's finished cutting. We have a look at our test here. You'll see that it's actually a little bit out. What you're looking for is you're looking for all these lines to join up. Now, the thicker the material you use, the bigger the distance between these two lines is going to be, because that's the V. So at the moment, it's not looking too bad, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it out completely so you can see what it looks like when it's not correct. So to do that, I'm going to go back into JWEI. I'm going to go back to tool parameters, into VCut 1, and I'm going to change vertical length and horizontal length. So in here, I'm going to put, let's go for 17, and we'll go for 26. So I'm just adding bigger numbers so we can see the difference. So apply an OK, set a new temporary origin, and now let's try that one. So we're going to output to device, output. So now it's doing the one side of the line, the other side of the line, the other line, and the other side of that line. There we go. So now you'll see that these lines are really far apart. But you'll also see at the top that they don't match up at the top, or they're nowhere near matching up at the top. So as we bring those values down, those lines are going to get closer and closer to almost make one single nice neat line like we have here. So it's a little bit of trial and error, but it's quite nice because you can just put bigger numbers in, smaller numbers in, you can see which way the adjustment's going. Once that adjustment is done, that is it. You don't need to do that adjustment again. You may need to just check it to see whether you're happy with it or to adjust it in future, but once it's done, that's it. You don't need to do it again. So I'm going to go back into JWEI again, tool parameters, VCut 1, and I'm going to put those back to where they were. Now you can always use these values here as your starting value, so you can try those and see whether they look good as well. So I'm going to press apply, OK, and that's now set up. So that's now the adjustments done for our VCT tool. So now we're ready to start cutting. So the last thing we need to do with our VCT tool is actually set up for cutting. So I'm going to go into OptiScout. I'm going to open up a job that's applicable. So in this job here, I've got two layers, an inside layer and an outside layer. So I'm going to set my VCut, or I'm going to set my material, sorry, to Zenita board 10mm. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to select method of VCut for the V-groove and EOT for the cut. And you'll see in my VCut settings, it looks a bit like this. So I've got it fairly slow at the moment, but we can obviously increase that speed. So speed down of 150, cutting speed of 150, rapid speed, how fast it's moving around the table, of 500, Z speed lift of 150, lowering of 150, position up of 30, and then position down is the important one. So that's minus 1.5. So that means it's going to lift the tool up 1.5 to allow for a skin of material at the bottom, which is what we're going to be using to fold it with. Now you will need to adjust that accordingly to your material, so you just need to have a play around with your settings. Then on the EOT, got my normal sort of settings for that. So rapid speed of 1,000, speed down of 250, 1,000, 15mm above, and then no extra depth on there. And that's ready to cut. So that's our setup for the VCT tool done. The next thing is looking at how we would set this tool up for future use. So this is the procedure. So we would put the tool into the tool holder, make sure it's in the K1 position, and obviously put the blade in. We'd then go into JWEI, we'd go to tool parameter, we'd ensure that it's on VCut 1 and apply that. We'd then go to debugging, we'd select VCut 1 in the top left, and we'd bring the tool down onto a piece of A4 paper and then check the depth is good on there. Once we've done that, we can press apply and then OK. And then you're ready to start cutting. So that's a full process, including the alignments of how to set up your VCut tool, your VCT tool on your JWEI JCut Cutter.